The first time the galaxy witnessed humanity protecting a child, history shifted, and silence swept the council floor. I had documented centuries of wars and treaties, yet nothing prepared me for humanity's response to unexpected injustice. My name is Dr. Elias Monroe, Earth's cultural attaché stationed at the Galactic Trade Spire Korath 6, suffocating bureaucracy's heart. After 12 long years in that tower of steel and glass, I foolishly believed I had grown immune. I had mediated bitter border quarrels, watched empires collapse spectacularly. Captain Torres spoke with quiet certainty. His words were soft, but they carried a weight that silenced the chamber. He declared the act unacceptable. His voice did not rise, but its steady force carried further than any outburst could. Torres's calm voice carried over the communicator, his report precise, his warning subtle, yet unmistakably final. Delegates shifted uneasily. The chamber was still, yet every being could sense humanity's quiet line had been drawn. We reached the central rotunda for routine inspection, security lines stretching endlessly beneath. At the gate stood Officer Zyrek, insectoid Clithery, infamous for rigid protocol and veiled kindness. His polished carapace gleamed harshly under bright station lights, while he inspected each. When Clara stepped nervously forward into the scanner, the contraband detector suddenly chimed, its shrill alarm echoing across the hall.
Unauthorized electronics detected. The item must be immediately surrendered.
Clara hugged her solar fox tighter, frightened but defiant, whispering softly.
Zyrek extended one spined limb menacingly toward her. Compliance is non-negotiable.
I stepped between them, keeping my voice controlled, insisting calmly. Officer, it's a comfort item for a child. Zyrek shoved past me brusquely, mandibles clattering, snarling, silence, as his spined limb lunged forward, snatching aggressively at Clara's toy.
Clara stumbled backward, her small hands clutching the plush desperately tighter, refusing to surrender the last fragment of familiar comfort.
Then, unthinkably, Zyrek struck her sharply across the face with the flat of his limb, violence echoing through the chamber. The chamber fell silent, every sound extinguished, as Clara lay stunned on the cold floor, cheek blooming red. Hundreds of human vessels held position, their formation both beautiful and unyielding, a demonstration of resolve beyond negotiation. I rose, helping her stand, my hand steady on hers, before turning to face Zyrek with ice in my veins. Admiral Morrison's voice was steady. Firm yet measured, it carried a promise that humanity would not compromise its principles. Zyrek puffed his thorax, chittering with disdain, declaring boldly, "The spawn refused protocol." I repeated his words, tasting them like poison. "Physical correction," I whispered, fury beneath us. The chamber grew tense, silence deepening. Delegates edged away, recognizing what came next. She reminded them of humanity's truth, survival through unity, resilience, and an unbreakable promise to safeguard the innocent. Command's reply was immediate, sharp. I lowered the device, eyes locked on Zyrek. Calmly, I warned, "Earth will respond." Restless. The next 48 hours crawled. Humans moved with eerie calm, professional and polite. The chamber held its breath. For the first time, seasoned diplomats felt the weight of humanity's unshakable conviction. But the other humans moved differently. Relocations disguised as randomness were not chaos. They were movements. Patterns emerged quickly, movements aligned, tasks unspoken, yet synchronized.
Then came the alert. Unknown fleet detected at system perimeter.
I rushed to the observation deck and saw them. Human ships. At their center hung a legend whispered in shadows, the Retribution, humanity's planet breaker, undefeated.
Every delegate, every official summoned to the chamber. Panic thickened the air. The realization... Commander Thex Prime's voice quivered despite decades of survival. Murmurs erupted. Some scoffed. Overreaction, they claimed. But none truly believed it. Then I entered, Clara in my arms, her wide wonder.
Admiral Sarah Morrison appeared, her presence filling the chamber, a voice forged in steel, one that made planets surrender whole.
They reviewed humanity's record in silence, realizing these newcomers carried discipline and power few had anticipated.
Morrison offered restraint, her voice cold steel. Turn over the offender within 60 minutes, or humans would come themselves.
Delegates whispered frantically, some insisting on protocol, others pale with fear. None missed the final edge in Morrison's voice.
Morrison's smile cut deeper than words, a predator's promise, unmistakable.
Then Clara's voice rose, small but steady. She asked if an apology might help. The chamber froze utterly.
Morrison softened at the child's question. Her answer was gentle yet unyielding. Some actions require more than apologies alone. Clara nodded, her small voice steady. She compared it to school discipline, time out.
When adults harm children, other adults must ensure it never happens again.
Clara compared it to her classmate being punished at school. Innocent logic within cosmic stakes stunned the chamber into silence. Morrison confirmed softly, yes, like that. But Zyrek's punishment would last far longer. Time out for crimes unforgivable.
Commander Thex Prime hesitated, calculating survival against principle. Humanity's deadline pressed like a blade at the throat of the Council.
A younger Council faction rose, voices clear. Vex Zyrek had already abandoned Council principle.
Tactical projections glowed. If humans forced Zyrek's surrender, casualties would soar beyond half the station.
Others admitted quietly, humans would likely minimize casualties even in violence. Precision defined them.
The chamber accepted the truth. Human violence was precise, terrifyingly efficient. Zyrek alone stood in the crosshairs of that fury.
But Zyrek refused, defiant to the end. He declared Council sovereignty absolute.
Commander Thex Prime's voice turned grave, invoking the Proxima campaign. 17 days, overwhelming victory.
Zyrek dismissed it as propaganda, sneering. He had not studied human history, nor survival's cost in defying their resolve.
Her words echoed with clarity, firm, direct, a reminder that humanity protects.
For the first time, Zyrek faltered. His arrogance cracked, fear bleeding through.
Admiral Morrison returned, her tone final. This was their last chance. Hand Zyrek over.
Behind her, officers stood silent, ready. Their presence said more than words. An army prepared to fight for a child. Her words were not loud, but they carried certainty. Humanity had drawn its boundary, clear and absolute.
Silence gripped the chamber. Delegates shifted, faces pale. Humanity had declared it. Security moved in, Zyrek thrashing wildly, mandibles snapping in rage.
Then Clara stepped forward, her voice carrying innocence and strength. She told Zyrek she forgave him.
Zyrek froze, Clara's words cutting deeper than any blade.
Security dragged Zyrek toward Docking Bay 7. Marines waited, their restraint clear. They longed to deliver vengeance but held steady. Clara stood silently as Zyrek was dragged away. Her small voice had already shifted the destiny of empires. Docking Bay 7 opened. Human Marines stood waiting, faces carved from discipline and fury barely restrained, their restraint more terrifying still.
For the first time, Zyrek's eyes betrayed fear. Surrounded by warriors who longed. The shuttle doors sealed with finality. Zyrek was gone.
Admiral Morrison's voice returned briefly.
Zyrek was in human custody.
The human fleet withdrew. No planet-breaking salvo, no conquest. Their precision arrival had carried its own devastating lesson. Emma's honest questions softened the chamber. For her, aliens were wonders, not threats, a truth that silenced divisions. I watched the last hyperspace streak vanish. The galaxy had learned. Council delegates whispered among themselves, their fear evident. Humanity had demonstrated controlled fury, a doctrine none would forget. One delegate scrawled furiously, documenting every word, knowing academies would teach this moment as a doctrine for centuries.
The council crest glowed coldly above. Yet beneath that symbol,
Her words were simple, unguarded, yet powerful enough to still the room. Even leaders paused to hear a child's truth. For a moment, authority bent to innocence. The Admiral's voice softened, her strength tempered by respect for a child's question. It was formalized quietly as the Clara Doctrine, an unspoken law. Human children carried the same respect as sovereigns. Soon, children of many species played under shared protection. Even the smallest knew humanity had reshaped the galaxy's rules. On my office wall, Clara's drawing hung framed. A reminder that even small voices can reshape galaxies forever. Zyrek returned months later, not as a soldier, but a clerk in rehabilitation. His punishment became education, not destruction. His new role was filing agricultural reports. Once feared, now forgotten. His arrogance buried beneath endless paperwork. Galactic academies now taught the case as required study. It was no longer a warning, it was doctrine. I archived my recordings. The galaxy had shifted course, not through fleets or wars, but through humanity's unshakable vow. The Earth fleet returned home. Their mission complete, they carried not trophies, but proof. Admiral Morrison reviewed the reports. She knew history would not remember Zyrek, but it would remember Clara forever. Clara returned to her crayons, sketching stars and friends. She was still a child, though one who moved empires. Her picture showed humans and aliens holding hands beneath stars. A child's vision, yet one the galaxy would follow. Across the galaxy, star maps carried a silent reminder. Earth's children were off limits. Agreements shifted subtly. Children gained protections once reserved for sovereign leaders. Historians repeated it often. Humanity's greatest power was not their weapons, but their refusal to abandon their young. Beneath alien skies, children laughed together. The galaxy was safer now, because one child refused to surrender her toy. On my wall hung her picture and note. A child's handwriting reminding me why I chronicled these events. I often wondered if Clara would ever know how her courage redirected history. Perhaps she already understood instinctively. Mr. Buttons remained at her side, stitched fur worn. A toy, yet also a banner of survival. Years later, Clara sat at the diplomatic table. The girl once struck now spoke for billions with steady grace. On her desk, the toy remained. A constant reminder that every treaty she signed carried a child's weight. They were not ordered. They volunteered. Engineers, pilots, Marines, even cooks.
Alien diplomats studied the human doctrine carefully. They now understood. The galaxy changed forever. A doctrine born from a child's tears ensured children everywhere were treated as sacred. Zyrek lived out his days buried in reports, far from authority. His legacy, paperwork, not command.
Students at the academy learned the Clara Doctrine. It was no longer just history. It became the foundation of diplomacy. Her drawing of humans and aliens holding hands hung in academies. A child's vision, now universal law. Council chambers remembered the lesson clearly. Humanity's power was not their fleets, but their absolute commitment to children. For a moment, she was just a child again. Her quiet dreams contrasted the storm of history around her. Her speeches echoed not with force, but with compassion. Delegates realized humanity's strength came from empathy sharpened by survival.
Her words were preserved in archives, etched into holograms beside treaties. History.
Even alien counselors began to bow their heads at the mention of children. A sacred rule had formed.
Even in adulthood, she kept Mr. Buttons near. Not sentiment, but memory, a vow stitched into fabric. Zirek's life faded into obscurity. His days spent with ledgers and shipments, haunted by one unforgivable moment. But the galaxy grew safer for children. Little hands drew stars together, united across species lines forevermore.
The Clara Doctrine became unspoken law. Above council chambers, it's across the stars, a new connection forms. The smallest hand on Earth carries the strength of an entire people, and no one dares test it.